everybody, hope you guys are having a great day. You guys get me right after I'm just coming off of a walk, and so if I look, I don't have on any makeup and I got a t-shirt today, but I had to get a video out to you guys, so it is what it is. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about something that I'm going to call the final push. The final push. And I don't always share everything that goes on in my personal life with just prayer conversations with God. And I've been sitting on this one for a few days, but I felt like today he released me to talk about this with you guys. And you guys already know I'm weird, right? So we're going to be cool with that. Okay, awesome. So I had this encounter with God in the car, and this is just the way that he talks to me. I was on my way back from running an errand, and he very urgently dropped this Eddie James song on me of Breakthrough. So the Eddie James song called Breakthrough. And I knew in that moment that it was very important to be obedient and to listen to it quickly. And so I pulled it up on my car radio and I was getting ready to listen to it. And all of a sudden, this really, really intense travail hits, right? You guys know what travail is, when you're like crying and like you just get that strong gut feeling in a place of prayer. And so I'm praying and it's just like waves of travail and waves of God's presence are just hitting me over and over and over again. And this song is playing and I know that it's significant. The whole song is just talking about breakthrough in your heart, breakthrough in your mind, breakthrough in your spirit, breakthrough in your soul, talks about just breaking through in all different aspects of your life, right? And so I'm praying into this thing and it's just such a deep cry of intercession. And it goes on for quite a while. And there's this particular phrase in the song that really, really God was emphasizing. And the phrase was to the song lyrics, "Walls fall down when I shout through." And immediately God spoke to me and he said, this is your Jericho walls moment for a lot of people, right? And so that shout right now of praising God in advance for your victory is so incredibly important, because it was their shout of victory that caused those walls to fall. And remember, they were tired and worn out by this point. They had been wandering around those walls of Jericho for quite a few days and it had seemed like they were making zero progress. And this is where a lot of you guys have felt, you're close to the end of your journey. You can sense it, you can feel it, right? But you haven't seen the walls fall yet, so that shout and that praising God in advance is so incredibly important right now for what is coming and what is about to happen. So I continue listening to the song and I was almost home, and I've learned with God that you pray until the burden lifts, like you don't stop. And so it definitely had not lifted. And so I drove around for like 30 more minutes just praying in tongues until that, intercession burden had lifted. But there was something else that happened in the midst of that prayer time too. So the whole Jericho walls thing happened, the whole shout thing happened, but then a little ways into that, when those waves of intercession and travail were just still kind of hitting me really, really strong, God said loud and clear in the middle of the car, he said, "Push," just like that. And I knew that it was referencing like a woman in labor, and that prayer time was birthing something, right? And he was saying push because it's like the final push. It's when it's the most intense, right? And so I want to tell you guys, significantly time frame wise, this is where we're at. Amen. And stuff gets birthed in the spirit realm a lot of the time before you see it in the natural. And I want to offer some precautionary warnings about the birthing process and who you allow in your birthing room in this final push, right? Before these promises start to come to pass in your life. The first thing is things that are going to stress you out more when you are in the process of birthing a new promise from God in your life is when you allow a bunch of voices in the room. Birthing times are special times. They're private times, right? They're times where the more opinions and the more voices and the more onlookers that you have as a part of your process, the more it can stress you out, right? The more opinions are flying around, all of this stuff. And when you're already tired, think about that final phase of a woman in labor, right? That final phase is usually she is exhausted. She's not looking her best, a lot of the time because she's been through incredible pain, it's usually a very vulnerable time, right? And it's a very hard time period, until that baby is born, and sometimes even for a little bit after the baby is born, and I think a lot of times what we do is we allow people access, and we invite everybody in during the midst of the most intense labor and pain and the birthing process. And then the devil will use those people as vessels to speak death over your promises. They'll go, you need to operate this way, right? You need to do this thing. You're not doing this correctly. It would be better if you do this. And all those voices around you will stress you out. And the devil can use it as a source of attack, right? The people who should be in the birthing room are you and your spouse. And if you guys choose to invite other people, that's between you and, whoever it is, right? But it should be, right, a very intimate moment. It's a moment, where you've got medical staff around, but it's not a moment that should be open to the public, ladies and gents, And I know that this is the place where a lot of you guys feel like you are right now. You're in a place where you feel like you have just labored over stuff. The attacks have been intense. Keep in mind the most painful part of labor is right as the baby's coming out, It's where it's very intense. It's where you haven't seen your progress yet, but you're really tired and you're worn out, and you can see all the signs that stuff is coming, but it just hasn't technically showed up in the natural yet. And I want to tell you guys, you are in the final push right now. I truly believe that for me personally, in that prayer time the other day, God birthed something in the spirit. That's why it was so important to be obedient to that time and to press in a place of prayer, because God is shifting things right now. But it's not just me. A lot of you guys are birthing things right now. I've been talking to you guys about how we are in these threshold moments right now. But you've got to be careful to not let the chatter when you're already tired, when you're already worn out, overwhelm you. Don't listen to everybody else's opinion right now. What did God have to say? Amen. And you've got to be very careful to shut down anything and everything that's going to try to cause you to fumble in the place of your faith. Right? Stand strong in the midst of this moment, right? And be very, very careful who the midwives are, quote unquote, that you allow to be around you, right? A lot of people can love Jesus, but not necessarily be safe voices for you, even if they are mature voices in the midst of your birthing process and your breakthrough, right? You need to bring that to God and allow him to lead you through this final push, this final bit of labor, quote unquote, so to speak, because he's faithful to finish what he started. Amen. I was in the book of Isaiah this morning, just kind of doing my normal Bible reading. And there's a particular phrase that really stood out that God had me write down. This is at the end of Isaiah 66:9. It was this one little phrase. It says, "Or shall I who gives delivery shut up the womb?" Right? In other words, what God is saying is, when you're in the process of giving delivery, of birthing a new thing in your life, why would I shut up the womb? God doesn't do that, right? He finishes what he starts. I've been talking to you guys about this, and a lot of you guys are in a place of delivery and it kind of feels like the womb has been shut up, right? You're in tremendous pain. You know what God has promised, but you just haven't seen it yet. And God is saying, don't give up right now. Amen. Some things have already been birthed in the spirit and you were just waiting to see it pop through in the natural. And the enemy is trying to hit you with everything he's got, with these last minute attacks, with this chatter, with all of this stuff of people trying to tell you, you need to birth this way and this doesn't fit the traditional mold and XYZ and all of this stuff, right? Listen to me. What did God say? Amen. What did God say? That's what you need to be focused on, because all of that chatter, right, when you're already very stressful and in a very important moment, right, can wear you down so quickly and it can cause you to get your eyes off of God. Amen. Know what he's promised you. Know that you guys are getting close and understand that you are in the final push right now. A lot of you guys stay focused right now in this season and be obedient. If God tells you to pray over something right now, pray over it, because this stuff is getting birthed in the spirit realm first. And then we're going to start to see this stuff popping through in the natural in these suddenly moments that God is orchestrating and ordaining in different people's lives. So keep the faith today and stay encouraged. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll chat with you again soon.